Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. All right, enough fun.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Global Business Talk Show. We have with us today a compa lover.
That's right.
We're, we're happy to start the show with some good compa while we're gonna have a serious talk with our favorite naturalist and sales director for the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Max Kari. Max, good morning, good evening. Happy to see you with glasses.
Yes, I'm telling you, I'm protecting my eyes, so I got my blue blockers here. So I was told this is the way if I'm gonna be in front of a bunch of Zooms all the time, that I should
Zoom.
be protecting my eyes.
That's right. That's right. Indeed, we spend so much time on in front of the camera, in front of the television, in front of our computer screen. It is very important for us to have good protection. Thank you. Thank you so much, Max, for sharing this information with us. And today, as we always promise you the best, the expert on different field, we will be studying the month of November with the right by making the right decision. What do you think?
I think that's the right thing to do. And when I say the right thing, not that is there's a really wrong thing, so to speak. Is just starting November, we know that once November hits, that's the countdown. We already know that the end of the year is near, and this is when people start reflecting on: did I make the right decision? Did I observe all the stuff that had to do with my goals and dreams? Am I on track? So people are being more critical, and that's when you start seeing more people that are depressed as well, because they're looking at I never caught up. It's always the same thing, and at the beginning of the year, I'm going to say the same thing again. Well, I'm going to make the decision to lose weight, and that usually goes sour. So when it goes sour, the person have to go back again, and there's all that little thing going on with anxiety and stress and all the behavior. You could see it when people are driving in South Florida. You're in mute.
I was saying, indeed, indeed, we could definitely see the way they drive in South Florida. Um, Nonetheless, October was the start of the fiscal year. So people who are actually listening to our shows, who have heard it from either an accountant, a marketer, a sales director, it's very important for you to have your budget. So no, October was your budget month for you to say, well, I've lost so much, and that's how I'm gonna plan on doing next year. So you have to have your projected fiscal report. I mean budget, sorry, and finish or closing your fiscal reports. Now November comes in, as Max just mentioned. The frenzy starts. What have I done? Should I stay in business? Should I start having new resolution? November is also my birthday, and then it's the realization that the year is over. Well, I don't want to start the month the way I just spent it the past 2 weeks sick with the cold, and you don't know how many people had called me. It's like, you sure it's not COVID? Did you get tested?
Yeah.
And now, because of that, today we're going to talk about several steps in decision making process. How do we make our decisions? Forget about the resolution. How do we make our decisions? Max, a couple of weeks back, we did a show about buyer's remorse. And oftentimes people feel like it's the same thing but in different ways. Well,
Yes.
since we are connected, but seriously, if you had heard our show about the buyer's remorse, I'm sure you know by now what are the tips or the steps for good decision making process. So, Max, you have the floor. How do we start when we make a decision?
Well, first of all, when we're thinking about decision, it's really to look at the frame, to frame the decision. And when a person, because when you think about steps in decision making process, we're talking about the steps to make the process. Because a lot of times people think that, okay, I'm making a decision, but they're not understanding it's a process. And the fact that there's a process behind it, a lot of times we get motivated. Some people, they make a decision based upon a dream. Some people make decision based upon information that they got or news or what's happening currently. A lot of times I always say to people that I speak to and I coach, I always go internal. So a lot of my decision is always motivated spiritually. So I consult inward to make sure that what I'm gonna send out outward is aligned. So there are people who use different method for that. So it always goes back to the frame. So when you frame the decision, that's the first process that comes in. Because
Mhm.
if there's no frame, then you cannot really move to the second step of the process, which I'm not going to say yet, but I just want to give a DJ an opportunity to comment on the frame of the decision.
So, in making a decision, when you say, when you talk about the frame, you don't want people to make emotional decision. Meaning that I'm walking on the street and I see somebody, and the person comes up to me and says, "I have the best Gucci bag or the best iPhone. Um, I'm sure you can afford it. Would you like to buy it?" So the person makes that proposition, for example. So we talk about proposition, just like you spoke earlier about the dream. Automatically, just because the opportunity presents itself doesn't mean that you have to actually make a decision. You actually have to frame it.
Yes.
And I believe what you're saying in framing it is that, for example, if you're married, you say, "What would my wife say?" I mean, I'm not even going to the point of, can I afford it? Or I'm
Hmm.
sure it's because you're looking all good and you have good swag and people think like, you could afford it. That's the reason why they offered you that bag or that watch. Now, to me, there's supposed to be a plan. What would I tell my wife? Can I afford it? So that would be in structuring, because you said in framing it. Because sometimes in making the decision, they frame it for you. Oh, Max, you would look good with that watch. And
Hmm.
you frame it by looking at it, and they actually, oh, you could wear it. They put it on you. So you picture yourself
Exactly.
with the watch. So that's
This.
already putting in a frame.
That's why
But
you
you
said,
haven't had a plan.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have a plan yet.
yes.
Maybe your wife sent you to buy the grocery.
And it's funny that you said it because when we hear frame, we're thinking about picture. So
Yeah.
why they're just putting you in that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say something that has a lot to do with the Chamber of Commerce,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say this: there are people. If our mindset as a chamber is not set to really look at striving as opposed to surviving, I
Mm-hmm.
can tell when a business is in trouble. When I hear the leader said, "Hey, we're trying to survive," and I'm like, "Uh oh." I'm thinking about this is a person that's leading us. And if they don't have their mindset set up and have the resolve to understand that, hey, we're going to find it, to choose their word literally, to choose the word exactly,
Exactly.
their word becomes their world. So I remember one of my coach, and this guy is doing major stuff. And he says, we're just trying to survive. And I'm like, you mean thrive? And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, but really, internally, it's all about survival. And therefore, every move he makes after that became survival, where the mastermind was even dissolved. So to show that if the head is not really, is not able to keep that frame, that, okay, this is what we're doing is done. And here's where I wanted to say it. There was a time back, a story that one of the famous speakers, Zig Ziglar, talked about, where a person walked into a diner and he
Mm-hmm.
saw a newspaper that says, trouble is coming.
Mm.
And then economic this and that is coming. And this guy went on and said it to everybody. And everybody kept repeating the same thing based upon a newspaper he got. And what he didn't do, if he had flipped the newspaper, he would have seen that something that was back in the 1960s.
Mm.
And he made something back in the 1960s become real in the 90s, turns out 30 years later. So that's why I have friends of mine, sometimes I talk to them and they'll say, man, things are tough. And I'm like, what do you mean things
It
are
was
tough?
when in the 50s and the 60s now.
He's like, things are tough. I'm like, what you mean things are tough? Yeah, things are not easy. I'm like, what do you mean things are not easy?
Tell me when it was easy. Remind me of a time when it was easy.
So I said, ontologically speaking, if your words understanding is supposed to create your world, then that's the reason why you're seeing things are always hard. You're seeing things are always a certain way. And I shared that. I said, I would rather you say to me, things are challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Our times are challenging.
Yeah, because you have to stay in the present and the now.
Exactly.
So
And
that's a framing.
that's a framing. And even further that, this morning I was listening to Tai Lopez at a TED Talk. He was talking about the law of 33%. Now, I was raised in network marketing where they tell you all your friends are losers, dump them because you're an average of 6 people that you're the average. Show me the 5 people that you hang out with. I'll show you who the 6th person is. So if you're chilling with 5 morons, you're the 6th one. So the law of 33% he mentioned is that you want to have 33% of people that's around you that may be beneath you. You know, sometimes it feels good to know that hey, you're way ahead, right? You want to have 33% people that's maybe at the same level as you. And you want to have 33% of people that is so far ahead of you, like 20 years ahead, because these are the only people that can help you propel to 10x. So if you can divide yourself into that law of 33%, then you know each group of people have their own thing, because you have to remember you might have been in a slump at one time. And I used to judge myself for always wanting to pull the other 33% that may not have the training that I got, and I'm seeing they progress. And all I kept on realizing is that the balance that I was missing is that I spent a little bit too much time trying to pull them, as opposed to allowing me to be pulled by my other folks that would be 20 years ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So that's where it gets a little tricky, because we can think that we're helping so much that we end up forgetting to help ourselves.
That's right. That's right. And in talking about the 33%, and if you have to look at your 33% advisors, the 33% that you're bringing in, and the 33% of your consumers.
Yes.
So this is what it's important when you're making a decision, to have a structured team.
That's right. Structured team is everything. There's no I in team. And because there's no I in team, yeah, there is no I in team. I played basketball, so I always said that I had one of the things that I chose to do, because I realized that a lot of times people more care about their individual ego,
mm-hmm.
you know, and if you're not the person that's a connector, mm-hmm. team is not there, because sometimes people lose sight of the bigger game. Sometimes you got to sacrifice your own in order to have that work. And anybody that played in a team format understand that. Sometimes it's a lot better for the next guy to shine, especially understanding that. So having a team works, because these are the only way that more can be done and the leverage would happen.
Yes. Recently, I have a young lady who came to me proposing that we do a show with Mancebo. And of course, the people who are listening to this show heard me play Jerusalema 100 times, because I think it's a spiritual song. I think it's the song of the time. I think it's my Movid my COVID not go down motivational song,
Uh-huh.
and she offered to me to have a show with this young lady. She says, you know, Monsibu is here, and I think it will be great for you and the chambers to have a show. Well, of course, I listened to the proposition. Remember the proposition earlier? I
Yeah.
told her that I have to speak to my team, and my
Yes.
questions to her was, I have to consider the time frame because basically she was giving me 2 weeks to put on a show.
Wow.
So how do you make a decision as such? In 2 weeks, you need to think about the budget. You need to think about the marketing.
Yes. Well, one thing that's set up is it all depends how the organization is set up. Let's say the organization already has what we call a ready to go type of system. Already have relationships and with vendors to know that we can pull one like that. And like you said, if the budget is appropriate, it can be done because all it takes is really fitting all the create the deadlines, and that's why it becomes more an emergency case. Now when you say something like that, I always say that the bigger thing, it's okay, we could put up a show. You want to give the people who are attending enough time. Your marketing has to be on point. Other than that, it has the ability to flop because within 2 weeks some people have planned already where they're going to be. Yeah, you're on mute again.
Not only that, but most people, I would say, the people who are the 33% advisors, you know, understand and believe me that my November and December calendar is already prepared. So if somebody's pulling me into any kind of projects,
Yeah,
it's just hard. It's just hard because time management also helps when
exactly.
you're thinking about the decision making and how you make your decision. I often hear people call me 2 days before an event. Hey DJ, can you be on my show? Hey DJ, can you do this? This is an emergency situation, and we don't want to live in an emergency
That's
situation.
survival
As,
right there.
yes, as an individual as well as a professional. So now
Mhm.
understand that if the Chamber of Commerce is busy helping the chamber members, it's going to be very hard for somebody who's not a chamber member to pull you into something that has nothing to do with the chamber.
I'm so happy you said that because when I finished high school, I went on being a personal trainer. And as a personal trainer, I got to coach, I mean, high powered lawyers, doctors in the same roof. So, husband and wife.
Hmm.
And I had to be in their house at 5 in the morning
Wow.
because I had to kick both of their butts, and then before they went to work. But what I kept on seeing, whether it was the realtor, whether it was the business owner, whether whoever it was, I always saw their calendar was filled a year ahead.
Hmm.
So they look at the physical, like you were saying, as a chamber, we've been around so long that we have things that people expect us to do every year, no
Hmm.
matter what, because that's the thing. So other people sometimes they see that when they don't consider the time frame and they see that they pull up something, they might have advertised the heck out of it, but they're
Hmm.
only going to get the people who are indecisive, who
Right.
never know what they're doing, and they're waiting for a wind of doctrine, a dream, a little thing, something, or somebody to pull them into something. While in reality, when you're really looking at the affluent, and you're the movers and the shakers, these individuals don't operate that like that. They
but
literally plan where they're gonna be.
yes, because the only people you get to jump on a wagon so fast are the 17, 16, 18, even the 21. I remember when my child was 21, he wasn't doing this because those people are always looking for something to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they still haven't found themselves. They're still trying to find themselves and adjust with something that they want to experience.
Oh boy.
Whereas if you're talking about the seasoned chamber members, would you believe if somebody calls me today to have a show either in March or May, most serious places where we usually do our events, there would be book.
Yeah, there are book. There are book, and I've seen that in some of the personal development programs that I go to. the company would book a year ahead, 2 years ahead. And this is what they do, and that's what a lot of people who are moving into living in this reality of being in the United States, they're not understanding. This is a country that is so organized that there's is not by default that I-95 reach all the way to New Jersey.
Really? Somebody was planning on
It was
moving to Jersey?
planned. Yeah,
It
it
was
was
planned.
planned. It was
So we call
planned.
it the East Coast.
Yeah, so it was planned. It was not done by mistake. It was something that had thorough planning, because Einstein always tells you that he would plan 99% of the time just to drop that 1% effort. But when that 1% happens, it's all been thought through. And
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people fail to really recognize. And this
So
is the part. Go ahead.
So in establishing your approach, you need to understand if you are planning or if you are making a decision. I don't want to say to fail, because I actually don't think people are actually sitting here thinking, okay, I'm going to plan to fail. Should I say the potentiality of failing, or if you want to succeed? Because in a case of the place you would like, TJ, I see that you have beautiful events at beautiful venues. Well, those are planned a year ahead. So now, if you want those venue, you might be lucky and find it, but not on a Saturday. You probably
Mhm.
will have it just like you would have a nosebleed seat. You would get it on a Wednesday or on a Thursday, but who will
Yeah,
come to you even on a Thursday?
yeah, you got to have a lot of star power to move people on a Thursday. Remember, we did something like that.
We did
That,
several
that
things
was
like
that
that.
was gold. that was gold moment right there.
We've
If you
been fat.
Yeah, if you can
We've been
pull
fat.
people, yeah, if you can pull people on the weekday, that means that person is established. They have control over their time. They have control over their money.
And they are engaged as well,
Yeah,
because if they're not sure that they're coming to something that is potentially big, they wouldn't see the value in it.
exactly.
You know, I've
It,
heard
it, it's
I've
so
heard
funny
people
you're
say
saying that.
it's what.
It's so funny that you're saying that. I'm just going back in the time that a lot of times there are business owners who are looking for the right venue to actually do networking,
That's
because
right.
some places are usually very superficial and they don't really get the right value
Hmm.
of their time. But when you can put something that has all those things aligned, then it makes sense, and it really hit home when something like that can happen.
And earlier as we spoke about having a team, and I think also in having this discussion, in having to think about the approach that you're taking, or if you want to establish the approach, we need to encourage discussion. And the reason why we have Max here is because Max is one who's always asking me questions. So if I said, well, let's do something on a Wednesday, he doesn't tell me that Wednesday is not good. He says we start discussing it. Is there a reason why you want to do it on a Wednesday? Who are
Mhm.
you trying to reach? Uh, what is the question that you like to ask me about the lead generation? How are you
Yeah.
gonna generate leads for this?
Mhm.
What is the purpose? And encouraging this kind of questions is what makes you a great coach. Not only for when you used to be a personal trainer, getting people up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but as far as sales. Because if you want to bring about more revenue, you
Mhm.
need to have a process and understand the finality. Who are you targeting? What time has that work? How do you know this is going to work? What are you putting in place to implement it? It's enough of me talking about my coaching sessions with Max. So go ahead, Max.
I am so happy that you're actually saying that. And the reason I'm saying I'm happy that you're saying that is because when we say establishing your approach, and you just mentioned what you said, do you know what is the difference between an event that is $10 and an event that's $100 to get in?
It's how I could pull and engage the people to come.
It goes around the story behind it.
That's right.
A lot of times people, they lower their standard and they just put because they're really surviving in the process.
Mhm.
But if I have the story that the daughter of Bulu is blah 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 meeting with Toto Larak and something like that, and you have so many things and they're celebrating X, Y, and Z. If there's no story behind it, it ain't going.
No, 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 no one will catch.
It's not gonna catch on. So that's the part that most people don't get. It's still about story selling. You know, I have something that always happens with my kids is that they still remember the time that I used to tell them stories, and I used to make it off the top of my head, and they're telling me stories I told them that I don't even remember I told them because I made it up. But for them, it was a story.
And then they stick to it.
They stick to it, and
They
I'm like,
remember it. And they love, and the best part is that they would always look forward to hearing you tell
yeah,
them a story.
oh yeah,
So
oh yeah.
once you do it and you do it right and you continuously do it right, then they're gonna want. That's how you're gonna establish your audience.
Exactly, and that's what I like that. So when you say when we're talking about establishing the approach, a lot of times go back to that. People like to survive and they want to mimic. They want to mimic. Not like mimic is a problem. Okay, a lot of times most people don't realize that there's a process to it, and that's the part where most people fail. Not understanding there's a process to all that steps. Um, I like the part when you said when we anytime that we're making a decision that way, we have to go and have discussions and debates
Yes.
and looking at all the whys. As you know me, I'm not about a how, I'm more about a why. Because the how is really the how is none of my business. First of all,
The how is
is
creativity.
exactly. So the how happens once the why is there, the how happens by itself, by default.
Hmm.
There's something that you were mentioning before about people not really wanting to plan to fail. I
Hmm.
remember back then, I was speaking to a banker, and I was saying that when a person does not make a decision
Hmm.
on something, they actually made a decision not to make a decision. Therefore, a decision is made for them by default.
And they're gonna fail
Well, that's the
because
result.
they're not into it.
That,
Oh,
that's
the result
that's
is a failure.
yeah. So because the decision has been made not out of their will, but as by default. So
Yes.
therefore, whatever comes up is whatever comes up because the decision wasn't made. So that's why a lot of people saying, if you don't plan, as a result, you plan to fail
Yeah.
because planning is everything, and in planning, time frame is important. Having realistic goals are very important. So all that part plays a major role in what we call a decision making process.
And I also think that when you're planning, you involve others. When you're planning, you're able to assign different people different tasks. And it's still part of the planning that helps you or encourages you to have discussions and debate about certain things. So if we are a group of seven or a group of nine, and this person is going to be the creative leader, this person is going to be the marketing leader, this person is going to sell, and I would always say that I'm so blessed. I have you and Kurt. So you focus on the sale, Kurt focuses on the marketing, and we able to merge those two and then get the, I didn't want to say machine, get the train moving.
Yeah, well, it's a well-oiled machine when it happens. When you have people that has what we call accountability, a lot of times people don't want to be accountable. Most people are saying, "How did you get so many people?" Like prior to the pandemic,
Hmm.
we had only 3 seats that were empty. That so we were really 97% full. That was the best event
90,
ever.
99.
Okay,
If
let's say
it's only
99 because
three people,
they bought the seats but they didn't show
they
up.
didn't show up.
So that's how we gotta say
Yeah.
it. But
Because
I
a lot
mean,
of people were scared. A lot of people,
yeah,
because the words were coming up. Some people heard about it. Some people were not sure. I heard that something is coming from China. And we literally were working out of less than a week from a COVID declaration.
yes, yes,
Meaning, meaning we didn't know, the government knew, maybe some government workers who usually come kind
Yes.
of knew.
Yes, of course. And that's what happens, you know. To be able to pull something like that, it takes structure. And most people don't have a real theme. And not having a real theme, I knew. Here's the funny thing: I was able to see my barber because to that event, because my barber was like, "Oh, my wife is a big fan of Tico," and then blah 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 blah. And I saw these folks because we do business together, and it made sense because that's what I'm saying. When you can have the power of networking and people are moving, no matter how many times that you have that person comes in. Um, our 33% will show up. They will show up.
Yes, and they would show up.
Yeah.
And when we need to navigate, for example, through the group dynamics, um, I have to confess that often I see potential in people, and those people are not willing to put on the work. You could see that somebody is a great salesperson. You could see that that person is a closer. In a sense, like, yes, you do the sales of the event, but if we were to take a young lady that we put her in front of a table with things to sell, she will sell. She would sell, she would upsell, and she would resell. So understanding the group dynamics help you place each individual where not only they feel comfortable, but then they could grow.
Yes. Well, that it's all part of it's all a training and development opportunity for a person. That's why we always encourage chamber member to, if they want to assist, there is a power in assisting. Because a lot of times people would love for us to teach them how to do what we do, but yet they never put in the time to be available to. They don't understand. When you actually in the trenches, you're actually doing the work.
Mhm.
This is hands-on. This is how you get it by far. You see, the theory will be the theory. Everybody can get the theory online with Google
Yes.
and all that. It's just really having an
Remember
opportunity.
it, visualize it, but
Yeah.
you have to have the opportunity to actually do the hands-on.
And a lot of times, what I always say to our group is that what's in it for you? What's at stake for you? Eh, what do you want to see to happen in your life that if you exercise it during your accountability, that you're going to have that show up? And this is how they call modeling in personal development, is that if you can do this in this area, let me give you an example. I was in a program for a year, so we did 2 years in total because there was part one, part two,
Mhm.
where you had to do 3 hours and a half making phone calls, connecting, inviting people to a program and see what's in it for them, how they can have a breakthrough and all that. So I kept on saying, hold on a second. If I could do 3 hours and a half for these guys and I'm not getting paid for it, I'm only getting quote unquote trained and developed. How much more can I make calls to my company? Then guess what? The minute I did that,
Mhm.
profit skyrocketed because I was saying that if they would give you a weird assignment, okay, you're responsible to clean the bathroom. Then you're like, okay, if I could clean their bathroom, how about in my office? My bathroom should be stellar too,
Yeah.
because that's one of the places that sometimes some people really neglect. So these are the type of things that it all parts into decision making.
And as a as you saying that, I used to have this problem with my ambassadors and my interns. So you would have people who tell me, DJ, I would love for your kid to intern for the chamber, because they need community hours and everything. But then those folks are not part of the chamber. So if you're not part of the chamber, you're sending your kids to just intern. Where does that leave the example of the kid thinking that you're just trying to do something by chance because you don't understand the process? And furthermore, with the ambassadors, so you would have ambassadors out. Well, thank God now all our ambassadors are chamber members, because an ambassador is supposed to be a chamber member and plus a cheerleader of the chamber. Because as we have events, and I'm gonna quickly talk about Fitzy in a minute, as we have events, the chamber ambassadors are the one who are in the forefront Those are the one who are actually representing companies that are from Haiti. And if the company owner cannot travel to Haiti, but they have a table at the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo. So our ambassadors are the one manning the table. So they have to have the knowledge of not only the chamber, but also that other chamber member and understand the process. And if they have to make a sale, if they have to make a referral, and we always tell people that we try to do the referrals, the references, and the sale for whom? For, of course, our chamber members.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's the same as a decision. If I believe in my decision, I'll stick to it and I'll make sure it happens.
Also, these people have been vetted already, so you know you're
Exactly.
not dealing with gang members. People want to funnel money.
Two
So
pockets
yeah,
inside.
I could even go a little further. A lot of people don't even look at that.
Hmm.
You see, when you have a community that has access, or when you are in a chamber of commerce, this commerce, the word commerce, involves automatically political.
Hmm.
All the jurisdictions, um, police department, were affiliated with the sheriff.
Yes. Hmm.
I mean, imagine if you already part of a group that can say a word for me. Hey, my child just got in trouble, X, Y, and Z. Can you reach out to so and so?
So yes.
A lot of people don't understand that who you know still play a major part
Hmm.
as to how favors get handed down. Like I always share with people, when I just move in an area, the first place I need to go is to the police station so that they can see my face, so that they don't know that, oh, you live here. I'm like, no, it's a process. People say, well, you shouldn't have to do that. I'm like, well, you shouldn't be born.
Well, then you should be living in that city because you need to understand being part of the city gives you a sense of appartenance. And not for a marketing tip, I'm gonna explain.
Belonging.
A sense of belonging. Sorry, I'm taking French now. I spent too many hours speaking French this morning.
Yeah.
Um, and we're gonna give them two tips of two things that you just spoke about. There's an application called Nextdoor. So I'm talking to my sister yesterday, and since you mentioned the election, and there's election coming up on November 2nd, we're gonna encourage you to go and vote. It's a special election, and through this app called Nextdoor, so understand that I am on this app for business reasons because I'm connecting with the people from the cities in which I do businesses because there's about 6 cities where I do businesses. But my sister, she's connected in the same app. She knows about the app, but because of a political affiliation, she wants to know what the community is thinking about each of those candidates. So you understand the importance of letting the police know that yeah, I'm here. I'm letting the people from the supermarket knows that I'm here and I need those kind of ethnic products, and I could connect you with the chamber who could bring you those products.
And people don't understand. At the end of the day, I don't want a person to already have their prejudice to give my kid or anybody's kid the full degree of the law, thinking that there's some kind of um, some kind of vagabond or ragamuffin, and then it's the thing is because it hurts when you didn't do your job because we're thinking that the world should be perfect, which it's not, and we could keep on trying, we could keep on protesting while we could have prevent, and that's why we do natural medicine. Let me prevent what can actually occur, so that if they see them in a flock, they're like, oh, that's Mr. Carey.
Exactly. I
They're
was
like,
going
hey,
to
yeah, yo,
say,
come this way. Josiah, I know your name. You'll come right here.
yeah,
I'm like,
establishing your presence.
yeah,
So
you
if
know you
there's
don't belong here.
anything,
They
if
look
there's
like
any
trouble.
Exactly. If there's anything that's happening in a city and somebody is running, and we've seen those movies, Armageddon and everything, when everybody's running because it's the end of the world, and that police officer sees that kid.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that police officer could help or protect any kids, but knowing that he had met or she had met the father of that kid, hey,
mhm,
you come here. You stay with me until I meet you. I found you. I found your dad. This is to me very important when you establish a presence in the community and any kind of community, whether it's the city where you live, whether it's the community of business owners, community of social workers, community of lawyers. You need to have a sense of belonging.
Yeah, and it costs nothing. Just
That's
a
right.
little bit of time. Yeah,
Yes.
just
Yes.
a little bit of time. And do your homework. And that these are the things that I say to people. They don't realize that there are institutions that already has their biases,
Hmm.
and the main thing you don't want a decision to be made by default
Hmm.
because you didn't do the prevention.
Yeah.
You didn't do the thing that needs to be done.
And last but not least, before we recap, is achieving closure and alignment. And as I heard Max say it earlier, we wish we were living in the perfect world. So you make closure in thinking, as a father, as a citizen of that city, I'm making my decision. I'm making it my decision to go to the police station, and you feel that it is the right thing, and nobody's going to
Mhm.
be able to tell you, like, well, we shouldn't. Well, what if we are?
They work for me. Why would I not want to
Oh,
meet
you're
my
taxpayer.
workers?
And you're a taxpayer, huh?
Yeah. If you work for me, I want to see my employees.
You,
I
you want to
want
get to know me.
I
You
want
want
to
to get
make
to
sure
know
you
me
know who
to
I
know them.
am. So,
Exactly.
so that I'm like, hey, Officer so and so, how you doing? Let's grab a coffee or a donut. Let's talk a little bit. How's the stress
Because
level?
that helps you understand also the dynamics of the city, what's going on in the city, and that
Mhm.
helps you align yourself with what else is going in the city that you might not know about. So let's say their kids playing hockey, or that they have a group for homeschool kids. Then you get to talk about this with your family members and to be able to share. So that is something that I think is very important. So Max, you gotta recap for me, because you're the guru here.
Oh, guru. That's too heavy for me. I wouldn't call myself a guru. But one thing that in recapping all this, as a matter of fact, I wanted to add one last thing real quick with achieving closure and alignment.
Hmm.
A lot of times people not understanding when you have a group, that's why votes are important in groups because you can have two different people or a set of group have different opinion about a decision,
Hmm.
and that's why alignment is important so that the closure can happen. Because if alignment is not there, we're not aligning to it. So automatically we have a fractured or a broken group that's going to put an event together or going to be deciding or really operating. So when there's already resistance, in our program, what we say we talk to people is that okay, we know that you fully don't agree to it based upon X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
Can you align, constructively align? And the way we say it that way is a way that will you play with us regardless, since we have the majority sees where it is, and we feel that we have something valid. Can you constructively align with us in what we're actually creating, so that we can play full out? And we'll always be mindful of that. And that's the way where you had every voice be heard, and it's not something that was done based on a dictatorship, but more of a democracy,
Hmm.
so to speak.
So
And
is that where you feel a little more confident, because you never second guess yourself, because that
exactly,
decision was thought through? Because I
exactly.
realize that often people are always second guessing the decision,
Mhm.
and it cripples them in the sense that, oh, I wish I had opened my business in 2019, because right now people are asking for masks. Well, why didn't you open it? It's because you had second guessed all your life, and you second guessed that this would work because you didn't have a team.
Mhm.
You didn't want to plan the process. You
Mhm.
didn't want to align yourself. You didn't want to use the dynamics or establish the dynamics in order for you to grow. Because if you're sure, I mean, Max, let's take it home. Let's take it home. Your dad was a very successful man, and he was a
Mhm.
doctor.
Yes.
And your mom because I know you've said that story a million times before. Successful doctor, and she wasn't only a doctor. She marked the world of Amway in Haiti.
Yeah, marketing.
So
Yep.
now in marketing, so your dad was into politics and he was a doctor. Your mom was into marketing and she was a doctor as well. So now, if I had to gamble and I have to put tic tac toe, where would I put you as a doctor?
Yeah.
But yet, you say the story of not only how you went into natural medicine and you even converted your mom into combining her
Yeah.
traditional. Yeah, go ahead, tell the story. I don't want
Well,
to take it away.
no, it's so funny because I resented her sentiment that she thought that only doctors
To be
was a
successful.
profession,
Hmm.
and I kept on saying, I said, Doc, I just don't want to kill people like you're doing. Now, had I known before that there
You were
was they,
teasing her.
that they were going to create NMD, then I probably would have done that part. Back then, they didn't have those. And back then they didn't have DOs as well. It was not as popular, so I could have done that and then choose to do that. But guess what? I don't regret because at the end of the day, when you can see, I've had some health challenges and I use the same protocol that I recommend other people, and I'm well. And
Well,
I'm like, this
you
thing works.
shouldn't regret because you are
Mhm.
successful. You were
Amen.
successful
Amen.
in the field of medicine as well.
Yes.
You understand?
Amen.
So
Amen.
that continues. So I'm gonna recap quickly, and if you could stop me and add on, that would help me quite a bit. So
Okay.
in the 8 steps of in the 8 steps that we spoke about today for the in the decision making process, the first one was to frame the decision. The second was to structure your team. The
Yeah.
third one was to consider the time frame. The fourth one was to establish your approach. The fifth one was to encourage discussion and debate, as we often do. The sixth one was to navigate through the dynamics. Seven, ensure the pieces are in place for implementation.
Hmm.
Max said it over and over. There's no I in team.
Yep.
And achieve closure and alignment. Now, even if you are a manager, a salesperson, the president, or the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, there will always be room for improvement.
Yep. Yes.
Suggestion in improving uh, your decision making, I would say, heads up, more personal development. What would you add to that?
Well, definitely, you're as strong as your leader. So if your leader hasn't doesn't have a resolved mindset or having a mindset that's continually being developed,
Mhm.
how would you really have an idea of where you're going? Is it would be the blind leading the blind.
Mhm.
So why we say mindset, it comes down to mindset is that once the leader has a strong mindset, then the decision making process, that's what's going to happen. You find a leader that's having a lot of personal issues, it's going to show up in their business just like that. So therefore, that's the reason why it's important that they can have themselves sorted out so that all aspects, because you can't be one way in a particular aspect of your life and another way in your business. Either way, there's one of them that you're lying. So and that the person would be a fraud. So that's why it's very essential. Personal development keeps on being at the forefront of any sorts of development when it comes to having effective leadership.
Effective leadership, it is. That might even be the topic of our next conversation, you and I, Max. And
Ooh,
I love the way that we shift from me being into marketing, you being into natural health and medicine. And we can talk business, we can talk sales, we can talk revenues, we can even have a little politics. So one
yes.
of the way that people need to understand that they need to improve their decision making is by learning how to make a decision. And the decision that we are inviting you to make this weekend is not to go party for Halloween or for Gay Day, and I probably will play some Gay Day song. It's for you to go out and vote on November 2nd. Early voting already started, but do make a decision and vote. And don't second guess your vote. The second invitation is further down, and we hope to have the people from the county come and talk to you. It's about FITSI. FITSI is the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo. It's on Wednesday. Remember, we spoke about having an event on a Wednesday? It's on Wednesday, November 17th and Thursday, November 18th. And people say, so I don't have a business. Why would I go there? Max, I'm waiting for you to do that. That's smart. So FITSI allows you as an individual to come and visit, you as a business to come and visit, you as a business to have a booth to expose your product and to exhibit your product. And let me tell you, when you go there, I don't want to say that it's a big flea market, but you could see and find everything service and products, not only local, national, and international. So we have international exhibitor. But one of the things that I'm very, very proud about FITSI, and when they say cultural, they mean cultural. There's a cultural component to FITSI, where every year they feature a country. And I remember once they featured Colombia, and another time we have our own, not Max, Olivier Duret, come and sing at FITSI. We have filmmakers, and the film industry is moving in South Florida. We're gonna have a film commission soon in Florida. That will be the third after California and New York. So I do encourage you to come. And guess what? It's free. Max, I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, well,
It's
guess
free to
what?
attend.
When people are saying, at the end of the day, a lot of people are saying, what's in it for me? I don't have a business. Well, that's the reason why you need to be there.
Before you
Imagine,
have a business.
imagine that you are a citizen or you're here, you are established in the United States. There are people who do not have the means to establish things here, but they would. They have the money, the backing, that they would make a partnership with you, whether you're 5% and they're 95, but they need your citizenship to operate here. And then
Consider it.
imagine by default, a company gets bid. You all you do, it doesn't even have to be you being sitting down behind the counter because everything is being handled by that company that has the backing
That's right.
to actually put it together. So all you got to do, look for somebody that's looking for somebody that's looking for an opportunity.
That's right. Be present.
And that's the
Be
part.
present in even making the decision, because sometimes, like we said, we let the decision be made by somebody else. Somebody else will make the decision for
Oh
you.
yeah, always, all the
and
time.
and we are living now where we could see everybody's looking for hiring, looking to hire something or somebody, and there's other ways for you to have your own organization where you can stay home and still have an organization. So be present in your decision making. That's my last word. My last word. Max.
Well, all I've got to say is bomba guy.
Oh my God. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, DJ.
You're welcome.
Bomba guy.